Hey guys, so in this video we're going to be talking about probably the simplest selection tool in Photoshop, which is the object selection tool. But before we get into that, let's talk about some of the more basic tools that you'll need to understand in order to use the object selection tool to its fullest degree. If you go up to the toolbar, the very first tool that you're going to see is the Move tool. You can also get to this tool by clicking V on your keyboard. Now, as long as you have Show Transform Controls checked off on the top left, then whenever you have a layer selected, these little white and blue boxes will pop up on the corner of your layer. These boxes allow you to scale an image by clicking and dragging. You can also scale them unproportionately by holding down Shift on your keyboard. That way you can kind of like squeeze and stretch them. Another thing that you can do with this tool is if you hover a little bit outside of the layer, you can actually rotate it as well, which is pretty cool. Now I'm going to get out of this by going up here. Sometimes you'll notice that your layers won't work or you won't be able to use anything else on Photoshop. That's usually because you have this little check mark that you have to click. Or if you want to cancel the transformation, you click the circle with the dash going through it, which I'm going to do right now. Alright, so now that we have a pretty basic understanding of the Move tool, let's move on to the Object Selection tool. So the Object Selection tool can be found 4 icons down. It might be hidden underneath the Magic Wand tool, so just hold down that menu and make sure you click the Object Selection tool. So as with any selection tool, you always want to make sure that you're on the correct selection mode. Right now I'm on subtract from selection mode, which is not where I want to be. I actually want to be on either new selection or add to selection. So I'm going to click add to selection now. Now there are different modes within the object selection tool, and right now I have the rectangle mode selected. And what this means is if I zoom in a little bit and then I go back to my object selection tool and I click and drag, it will make a rectangle. And once I let go, you'll see that that rectangle is going to kind of like suction cup onto the avocado. Now, the goal here is to get rid of the background of the avocado, but right now, if I click delete on my keyboard, it's going to get rid of the avocado. So what we have to do is, I'm going to undo that really quick, and now we have to inverse the selection. To inverse the selection, you go up to the select menu, and then you click inverse. It's the fourth one down. You'll know that your selection is inversed when you can see those little marching ants on the corner of the artboard. Alright, so now it is safe to click delete, and we totally got rid of that pink background. Now before you do anything else, just click Command D on your keyboard to deselect the selection. And let's go back to our Move tool, and now you can see that it's totally separated from the background, and we can make it bigger, smaller, rotate it, and it's totally free from the restraints. So now what I want you to do by yourself is repeat all of those steps, but on the banana layer. Alright, so now that we're done with that, we're going to move on to this burger layer right here. And we are still going to be in the object selection tool, but this time we're going to mess around with the modes a little bit. So right now the mode is on rectangle. If I click that, you'll see that there's something called lasso, which is similar to the lasso tool, but not to be confused with the actual lasso tool on the toolbar. I'm going to click lasso, and this is going to allow me to make a selection freehand as opposed to just a basic rectangle like we had before. So I'm going to start by clicking down at one point, and you never let go until you're finished with the entire shape. You just do kind of like a freehand selection around the shape, and usually you would do this with more of like irregular shapes. And then you let go once you hit the end. And check that out, it selects that burger perfectly. Now again, we have to inverse the selection before we delete the background. So we're going to go to select, inverse, and delete. Perfect. So now we're going to go to Command D for deselect, and we're going to move on to these little candies below. So let's start with the bubblegum layer. Now what I want to challenge you to do on this image is I want to see if you can capture all of the white gumballs. So some of them might be a little bit tricky, but let's try it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the lasso mode, and I'm going to just kind of do like a loose circle around it. I might even go like within it. Perfect. Now, I need to make sure that I have my add to selection mode on at this point. We do not want new selection. We want add to selection because we're going to select all of the white gumballs at once. So if I have that selected, then what I can do is I can just kind of select that area. And I'm just going to keep going with it. Why stop now? Alright, so I think that at this point I probably have all of the ones selected that I am going to be able to get selected. So now, at this point, what I'm going to do, again, is I'm going to go to Select, Inverse, Delete, and there we go. We got all of our white gumballs. Remember, Command D to deselect, and let's move on to our last layer, which is the M&Ms. We're just going to do the same thing here, but this time, let's focus on the red M&Ms. So again, I'm just going to circle. And these ones are turning out to be a little bit trickier, but it's definitely doable. So keep doing that until you've got all of your red M&Ms. Alright, so now that I've got all my red M&Ms, I'm simply going to click Select, Inverse one more time, and then Delete on my keyboard. Alright, and that is pretty much it, guys. So at the end of this tutorial, your file should look like this. And now you have a pretty good understanding on how to use the object selection tool.